In a 10 Fnaf ARG. This was brought up in an older, or kind of like a recent but not the most recent matpat Fnaf theory, and people were starting to suggest that actually like an ARG would be involved in the DLC. The basic idea being that the Fnaf Fazbear Frights books were originally going to have an ARG that Scott ended up cutting out for whatever reason, and then released as part of the Felix the Shark book as the extra couple stories. But I'm here to tell you that that's probably not real. All right, Scott has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't want to cross the line between fact and fiction, and that he wanted to keep these two worlds separate. Probably because, you know, FNAF relates so closely to Chuck E. Cheese. And that's also why he would have never made a real location. Or at least he didn't until the announcement, or I guess the discovery of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Delivery Service, the digital restaurant delivery service in the works since at least January of 2021. So yeah, maybe it's more accurate than we thought. In a 9 Into the Pit. This is crazy, I will admit, okay? It's most definitely not the case, but I just want it to be real, okay? FNAF has already established time travel as possible in the very first Fazbear Frights book called Into the Pit. Remember that one? It's the title story as well, where Oswald ends up jumping into a ball pit and then somehow leaving 2011 and appearing in 1985 to witness the missing children's incident. Yeah, that story wasn't written for no reason, okay? And where do we see the first ball pit that wasn't in a pizzeria simply meant to lure animatronics around? Oh, would you look at that? The Mega Pizzaplex, motherfucker. I'm just saying, the time travel is already established as canon in the series, and considering how sketchy Gregory is, I wouldn't put him past him from being from the future or something, alright? There are two key indicators that in my mind point to this. The therapy disc, where the therapist calls Client 46 out on the lies of their home life, and the fact that when Gregory leaves the Pizzaplex in the worst ending, he sleeps in a cardboard box. The therapist in that tape says that 46, who can still be Gregory, it might be the little girl who was in the poster for this DLC, but if it is Gregory, he has a great home life, okay? But like what they told their previous therapist was a lie. So if that was the case and his home life is great, why is he sleeping in a cardboard box, okay? Like, he says his parents suffered some form of tragedy and he's sleeping in a box, but apparently if he is 46 at least, that's not true. Yeah, maybe because it hasn't happened yet, okay? The tragedy where he most likely loses his parents hasn't happened as of when the game takes place, and that's why he can't actually go home to see them, because then there'll be two Gregorys, and they're like, what? How? In a date, Susie. The girl in the center of the FNAF Security Breach Ruins poster is most likely our player character for this game, but given the blonde hair and the cheek on the poster, could Susie be the FNAF Security Breach DLC main character? Now, your first instinct may be that this is impossible. That was my first instinct too. I mean, like, Susie's been dead since 1985 with the missing children's incident, and she ends up possessing Chica, who is then set free in Happiest Day. But in the original novel trilogy, starting with the Silver Eyes, the Funtime animatronics are described as being injected with Remnant made from the original 5 possessed animatronics, meaning that if Remnant does contain at least part of a soul, that the original 5, despite being set free in Happiest Day, no matter when Happiest Day takes place in the timeline, could still have the slightest bit of spirit form in the main world, since they would have been an Ennard, who at least at this point is Molten Freddy. I don't think that there is any explanation that could mean that this is Susie's original body. That seems like some supernatural shenanigan Lazarus pit kind of crap, and just seems fundamentally impossible. But could Susie have latched onto a new body? Maybe. And it's 1 year later. With the DLC not releasing until 2023, the question remains of when in the timeline the DLC will take place. Yes, it will take place after the true ending for Security Breach, obviously, but how long after is the actual question. See, with the state of the animatronics, it seems like it could be later on, and like with the release date being 2 years after the release of the original game, it means that it could be linear in a timeline sense, so maybe it would also take place 2-ish years after the ending, or maybe just 1 year, depending on how you look at it. I don't know. But then that would also bring on the question of why Gregory is trapped if it's a year or 2 later. And then we also have to ask, you know, who is this girl and why is she coming to this abandoned pizza place 2 years later when she is again the size of a 6-year-old and alone? You know, she's not like an urban explorer teen with her friends, so yeah. And while there are theories about it, this one specifically about it being like a year later is from Amanda specifically, but I don't know. We don't know and we won't know until it's released. But hopefully it is right, because I would love to see how Gregory survived for a year. And at 6, Help Me. Very reminiscent of the Same Them mini game from the earlier FNAF games, and I think it was FNAF 2. You can see Gregory's face on the bottom left monitor with the phrase "Help Me" underscore written in big green lettering. This to me seems to indicate that we may have a potential plot idea brewing where we need to save Gregory and Freddy after the collapse of the Pizzaplex. Because I mean, like, we know that Gregory and Freddy are sitting on the hill in the final shot of the true game, and they're also sitting on the hill alone, meaning that if we do end up saving him, our player character is probably going to die in the process. This also means that we won't be playing this game as Gregory, obviously. I mean, I've already talked about it before. But the underscore here could also be like another indication of Gregory being a robot, if you want to look at it like that, which is kind of insane. And it's a bit of a stretch, but I mean, oh well. But it could also just be a reference to a file within the game files, or a file within the DLC files that could contain additional information. But I have no idea if that's true, or if it's just speculation. But given the fact that people think that there's an ARG, maybe a file that is help me underscore, since underscores are primarily used for putting spaces in file names without actually having to use spaces. I don't know, maybe that's something that we should look into when it's released. Maybe it'll have a little bit more info for us. Halfway through into number 5, Justice for Bonnie. Bonnie was missing from a security breach, having been most likely destroyed by Monty, but perhaps getting to investigate Bonnie's disappearance and being able to change how things go with, I don't know, just like the story of Fazbear Entertainment going forward would be an interesting mission. If we were meant to actually like truly investigate it, that is, I guess, like turn maybe at least part of the DLC into a bit of a detective game, I think that would be like a really fun, compelling, and like good side story. I don't know. And from what I've seen, we all want justice for Bonnie, especially since we want Papa Freddy to be reunited with Bonnie, since he seemingly really misses him, considering the dialogue from the first recharge station when Gregory asks him about Vanny, and Freddy says there is no bunny in the Pizzaplex. Not anymore, in a very somber way, but I still don't trust Freddy, so I don't really care. I just want to be a detective like Batman. Plus, I mean, we also don't have any good animatronics this time around to help protect us, since Freddy is trapped, so maybe this will be the way for us to get another guardian, since Freddy's with Gregory. And then there you go, you also get choose your guardian. You're welcome. You can have that one for free. Steel Wool, just please respond to me on Twitter. For level 10. Now, the highest security level access that you can get in the main game is level 8. This just requires you to do every of the like security room mini games. However, with level 8 being the highest that you can actually achieve, it begs the question as to why there are doors with level 10 security. Because if it's impossible to achieve that level, what's the point of giving them a security level at all? I mean, there are doors that are actively locked and don't open at all, that aren't blocked. So like, why not just make the doors that you would have made level 10 just impenetrable? It doesn't seem efficient to me, okay? They could have been saving these areas for this DLC, and they could add maybe 2 more security pass rooms, since like if you end up no-clipping past the doors with level 10, there is nothing behind them at all. So I mean, I don't know, it would be nice to get some additional areas in the DLC. These level 10 areas would give us that little extra sense of new content while also expanding the Pizzaplex in a relatively reasonable way, and especially considering how we've now had the place collapse, those level 10 doors still being shut would be a bummer. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Prisoner. Now, time to get into some theories about our little blondie in the middle, alright? Who is she? I don't know. I doubt that it's Susie, like I've mentioned earlier. But I've mentioned in previous videos how she looks an awful lot like the middle silhouette of the 9 children who have gone missing due to Vanny on the newspaper, and I still stand by that point, okay? I think they look similar. So the most realistic answer that I have is that it's one of the missing children who aren't actually dead, and that they were instead trapped in the building somewhere, much like how Vanny in the first trailer for the game says that she has Gregory's friends here with her. So clearly Gregory must have known the kids that have gone missing, which actually would explain why he came to the pizza place in the first place. It doesn't really explain how he never mentions them throughout the whole game, but who knows, okay? Either way, it's a very real possibility that this blonde girl is just a missing kid who, thanks to the collapse, managed to escape containment like an SCP gone wild. But ultimately, in at number 2, No More Freddy. it is also possible that Freddy is destroyed, or that he just won't be in this DLC at all thanks to the statue we see on the poster. This poster could be an indication of what happened to Freddy after the pizza plexus collapse. I mean, like, it did destroy Chica pretty well, right? So, like, wouldn't it have destroyed Freddy too? Like, yes, he ends up on the hill with Gregory, but, like, I mean, it could be a dream, right? Or maybe it's like a heaven. Maybe they're both dead. That scene could be several years after the actual ending to the game. We could have just seen the end of the Fnaf series with that shot, okay? We can't be certain. Or at the very least, the game could be just omitting Freddy, and he won't make an appearance because they couldn't get the voice actor or something, for whatever reason, hence why his statue is destroyed, okay? The thing is in pieces. Have you seen the poster? But why is it? We don't know. There isn't much rubble around it. The escalator walls are less damaged than this statue, so I don't know why the statue would be so destroyed if nothing around it actually seems broken, but you know, I don't know. And finally, in at number 1, Elizabeth Afton. I've mentioned before how both these kids, Gregory and this girl, look like Afton kids. Gregory is very clearly meant to be at least an allegory for Crying Child, okay? Stripes on the shirt, the age, the relationship with Freddy, it's right there in our faces, okay? Whether you believe he's a robot or not doesn't matter. He's at least meant to represent Crying Child. And now, look at this girl. While she may be in mostly black and white, she is very clearly blonde, okay? She has pigtails like Baby does, and we all know who Elizabeth was possessing. Yeah, Baby. She's also wearing a skirt exactly like Elizabeth was wearing at the time she ended up getting caught in sister location. And I mean, like, if Crying Child's 2 stripes are enough for a comparison, then I think that this is more than enough. The outfit is basically the same. And then, look at her shoes. The lights are the only thing that has color on them on this character, which is very clearly meant to draw our attention to it, and then those lights are purple and red. Purple representing Afton, obviously, and red could be Vanny. Maybe it's supposed to be Vanny's eyes, but Baby is absolutely covered in red, okay, from her clothes to her hair. Red is all over that animatronic. Plus, if this girl's in black and white, maybe she's just a ghost. Maybe she's not actually real. Maybe it's just Elizabeth's spirit coming after her brother. Firstly, let's go over a theory that I've been seeing that I wanted to stop in its tracks. I mean, it's probably not gonna happen, because this video is probably gonna get like 6,000 views max, but either way, the identity of this little girl is 100% not Susie, the girl who goes on to possess Chica. Susie has been dead for a long time once the game takes place, being dead for over 50 years or so. So there is literally no possible way that this girl could be Susie. You may be thinking that she could be possessed by Susie, but we released her spirit in the Happiest Day minigame, and she has only possessed Chica as far as we've known. Some assume that the Happiest Day minigame takes place at the end of the timeline, however I don't think that's true. Considering how FNAF 3 was supposed to be the end, and that when FNAF 3 is over we get the good ending, to me that indicates that the Happiest Day minigame takes place in FNAF 3, especially considering how the simulated pizzeria FNAF 6 does not have to lure the original animatronics back to the pizzeria, meaning that they did not need to be released because, well, they had already been dealt with. So about this girl, let's go over some evidence about what we see on the poster. Firstly, there is her blonde hair. We know that it's blonde thanks to the rim lighting on the character being blonde at her hair, and while yes it may seem stupid, I think that the general consensus is that this girl is blonde. While rim lighting is the color of the light that it is instead of the color of the person, it also isn't going to be yellow on a darker surface, so this means that her hair is not black, eliminating Cassidy from the race. So this is not the spirit that was possessing Golden Freddy, or who a good amount of people consider the one you should not have killed, aka the Vengeful Spirit from Ultimate Custom Night. The girl in the middle is also wearing a jacket and what appears to be a denim skirt, fingerless gloves, white socks, and sneakers that light up Skechers style. Hashtag not sponsored, but like Skechers, hit me up, we can probably work something out. Now this may not be out of the ordinary to any of you, but this instantly reminded me of someone from a previous game. As I did mention this in another video, Elizabeth Afton. Okay, I get that she's been dead for longer than Susie, but just hear me out, okay? See, when we were playing Sister Location, we ended up getting the cutscene where Elizabeth is grabbed and killed by Baby, turning Baby's eye color from blue to green. This outfit that this mysterious girl is wearing is nearly identical to the one that Elizabeth was wearing in that minigame, aside from the light up shoes that wouldn't be available for another decade by real world standards. However, in FNAF in 1983, they also had discs that emitted sounds that altered the appearance of things in your brain. So a couple of light up shoes 10 years early doesn't really seem like that much of a stretch. The skirt is also identical to the skirt that Elizabeth wears in that cutscene, and the jacket could easily be covering up a similar styled shirt, which could be pushing the idea that Gregory having 2 stripes on his shirt is definitely important. But I want to talk about the color. You see, there is no real color on this girl. Bumping up the saturation, brightness, or vibrance actually shows that this girl is drawn in black and white. Have you ever heard of the saying, lack of evidence is sometimes itself evidence? Like maybe you're dealing with a professional killer, or that these thieves are overly cautious. Well, I think that this is a similar situation. Think about it. Why would they draw this girl in black and white? I mean, yeah, sure, she's backlit, but being backlit doesn't make you grayscale. This is an indication that the color of this girl's clothing can possibly mean something. Maybe Scott thought that he was too subtle with Gregory, only putting 2 stripes on his shirt, so this time he went for the full outfit including color. Speaking of color, there's also the matter of her shoes, the only part of her that isn't rimlet that has color. The color of her lights being purple and red. Purple obviously being a nod to William Afton, aka the Purple Guy, a character so synonymous with purple that I can't wear my favorite shirt on this channel now without being called a serial killer. And red, while misleading, actually does tie back to Elizabeth Afton in the form of Baby. Her entire outfit was red, including her bright red hair, and I mean, like, it seems fairly reasonable to assume that this girl has at least a connection to the Afton family, although there is another explanation for the red on her shoes. Give me a minute. Given that the other 2 humans on this screen, Vanny and Gregory, are also connected to the Aftons, we can guess that this is the case with the blonde girl as well. However, I don't think that the girl herself is Elizabeth. Here's the wow moment, alright? I think that this girl is possessed by Elizabeth. Yeah, I know, right? Hear me out. I know I said that that's not possible with Susie, but that's because we freed her, alright? There are 7 faces on the Blob, the secret antagonist of Security Breach. 4 of them have lit red eyes, and 2 of them don't. The 4 that do are Naked Endo, Fnaf 1 Bonnie, Fnaf 1 Chica, and Mangle, all of which are somehow present in some form or another in the Pizzaplex. Mangle is Roxy, Bonnie was Bonnie, Chica was Chica, and we fight multiple endos on multiple occasions. The 2 that aren't present, however, don't have their eyes lit up, Baby and the puppet. But we know that fire doesn't do anything to Remnant, clearly. I mean, Afton has burned, what, 3 times now, and none have stuck? And in another video, we determined that the spirits can only be freed when they get their unfinished business resolved, like the missing children in Happiest Day. Baby also doesn't seem too happy about burning in FNAF 6. She in fact says that she wants to make her daddy proud, and dying to fire would really do the opposite considering how many he survived. So, much like we suspect Michael could have, Elizabeth could have swapped bodies as well, into one of the missing children that Vanny took. Hell, that could have been why Vanny took them in the first place. Afton wanted his daughter to have a vessel, hence why this one looks so much like Elizabeth's original body. This also explains why there is red on her shoes, because it's meant to represent the glowing red eyes that would be in the animatronic head. Remember, it's damn hard to kill an Afton for good, and in the books, Baby is really the one orchestrating everything, at least when it comes to the Afton amalgamation. Especially since this girl is facing away, her eyes could also be green. And I have a feeling that throughout the game we will see her eyes either flip-flop or start off blue and become green or something like that. Or, what I think would be the coolest way to do this would be having her eyes green normally, like if we see it in like a camera or something, but be blue in a mirror. So, here's how I think the story went. After the FNAF 6 fire, William gets a hold of Vanny in order to get his body back. He creates, through the company, a new location on top of the old one to hide his deeds, and then he sets himself free. In the process, though, he notices that his daughter's spirit is also stuck. Since this is the first time they've been together since he put her in the basement of sister location, he decides to help her out, and causes Vanny to start abducting kids who look like his in an effort to rebuild his former family. Given that his youngest son is either still possessing him or now loose to the elements as well, the blonde girl is then kidnapped and Elizabeth finds her suitable host, so she's possessed. And now she follows Vanessa around in an effort to keep an eye on her and remind her that Afton is always watching. She starts manipulating her through encoded chats and messages, and hacks the FNAF AR animatronics to cause them to malfunction, and gets Vanessa promoted to security guard to keep an even closer eye on her. As a part of her observations, she starts therapy just like Vanessa does, and despite her telling the truth about her family history, it doesn't line up with the girl that she's possessed. Hence the one therapist calling out Client 46 for it, and her explanation about what happened to her family seeming to lack emotion, since after all she watched it happen as Baby instead of experiencing it as an actual child. After the collapse, she is either brought back by Afton requesting help with himself, or possibly also to help secure the vessel for Crying Child, who escaped along with a Michael possessed Glamrock Freddy. To me, this seems like a game about reuniting with lost brothers, lost hope, but most of all, reuniting a family. the AFTON family. After all, we have all the characters now. The misguided father whose misdeeds cost him everything, his loyal daughter who wants to see her family back, the mother who now agrees and is a part of the father's plan, even if unwillingly so, and the sons, one too scared to do anything, and the older brother who helps him beat the circle that their father created, who rights their wrongs and makes up for their family's sins. What do you think? I feel like I'm pretty spot on with this one, and that this could be a great launching point for the next part of the series, but let me know what you think down below. Into 10, Into the Pit. This is crazy, okay? I will admit, and it is 100% not what's going to happen, but FNAF has already established time travel as possible in the very first Fazbear Frights book, Into the Pit. Remember where Oswald jumps into a ball pit and then somehow leaves his year, which I predicted was 2011 in a previous video, and then appears in 1985 to witness 5 children getting killed? Yeah, that story wasn't written for no reason, I think. And where do we see the first ball pit that isn't in a simulated pizzeria meant to just attract animatronics and not really kids? The Mega Pizzaplex. I'm just saying, alright, the time travel is already established and technically canon in the FNAF multiverse. And considering how sketchy Gregory is, I wouldn't put it past him from being from the future. There are 2 moments that in my head really solidify this as a possibility, albeit a wild possibility, but a possibility nonetheless. I mean, like the therapist disc where the therapist calls client 46 out about the lies about their home life, and then the fact that when Gregory leaves the Pizzaplex in the worst ending, he sleeps in a cardboard box. Okay, the therapist in one of the tapes says that 46, which I'm still at this point at least kind of thinking is Gregory, had a great home life, but they told their previous therapist that they had a horrible one. But if that is the case and they have a great home life, how is that the case if he's sleeping in a cardboard box? Maybe because it hasn't happened yet. The tragedy where he most likely loses his parents hasn't happened when the game takes place. It happens in the future, which could mean that this girl that we play as could be Gregory's sister who came to save him when he didn't actually come back to their time. It's nuts, but it's possible. Anything is possible with FNAF at this point. In at 9, Friends. Now a theory about our little blonde girl in the middle of the poster, alright? Who is she? I made it a point last time to mention how she looked an awful lot like the silhouette of the 9 children who have gone missing due to Vanny, and I still stand by that. So, in my mind, the most realistic answer is that the missing children aren't actually dead. Or at least this time they aren't. That they were instead trapped inside the building somewhere, much like how Vanny in the first trailer says that Gregory, your friends are here with me, or something like that.
Gregory, your friends are worried about you. They're here with me. Please come out.
So clearly, Gregory, at least originally, knew these missing children, which explains why he came to the Pizzaplex in the first place, but it doesn't explain how he never mentions them. Either way, it's a very real possibility that this blonde girl is just a missing child who is also one of Gregory's friends, that thanks to the collapse managed to escape whatever prison she was stuck in. And it ain't Save Him. Now there is a very clear connection between the Ruins poster and the Save Them minigame from FNAF 2. The text on that one screen, at least to me, indicates that we might have to save Gregory from whatever situation he's in with Freddy. Since we know that eventually he does make his way onto the hill that he sits in after the true ending and the Princess Quest ending. However, it could be possible that that scene we see just happens before and then he comes back, although I wouldn't see why he would come back. It's also possible that that's just a dream, since it's more realistic than the other endings. But, I mean, it could just be because the true ending is canon and that's why it's realistic, but you know what? Nothing is clear with FNAF. Obviously, if it's real, we will end up being successful for saving Gregory, but it is possible that we will die in the process. And you know what? Here's hoping. I don't want more children to keep track of. And at 7, Save Us. What if we're the ones who need help this time around? I mean, we have no idea who this person is and what they're doing, but maybe they're not one of the missing kids and they just also got trapped somehow as well. I mean, it's a question of how they would have gotten in, of course, and like, why are they exploring this place if it's destroyed and they're the size of a 4-year-old as well? But like, Still, no idea why she could be in the Pizzaplex, but my job isn't to theorize about why, but about what. This plot may end up being that we have to help Gregory save us so that he can show us the way out. Or the game is just going to be replayed as a new character with Gregory as our guardian telling us how to get around and get out of the Pizzaplex, which might satisfy those of you who wanted the Choose Your Guardian DLC. I said it wasn't going to happen. It just didn't make sense to do, since like it would just be the same game again, but slightly different. And I was right. And at 6, Bonnie's released. And while we may not be choosing our guardian, it's definitely possible that in this whole mess, Bonnie was released from whatever prison he was being held in. Or at least something like that could be possible. I mean, there are plenty of doors that we can only get behind if we had level 10 security clearance, which is impossible within the game. So those doors could have been opened or have just been destroyed in the collapse, which could explain how we get into these sections now that we probably aren't going around trying to collect security badges, if there are any even left remaining. But a security door level 10 would make much more sense since we have no idea what could be behind any of those doors. Maybe they kept Bonnie in some stasis chamber since he's a sentient AI that couldn't really be moved or something. I don't know, okay? It's FNAF. They'll come up with a scenario and a reason, and we won't really be able to fight it. That's just how it goes. Halfway through into number 5, Antagonist. We've played as the antagonist before, however the player we were was only an antagonist in the next game, not in the game that we were playing, meaning that this time we could be playing as an actual antagonist. I mean, Chica being in the poster either means that there is a connection or we're just being messed with, and recently I think we're always being messed with, so I'm gonna go with that, meaning that this little girl could possibly be Vanny. I mean, we know that Vanny does have a spirit within the building as we see in the rooftop ending, but could we actually be playing as her child spirit? I mean, it's possible. It wouldn't be the wildest thing that FNAF has ever done. Additionally, I mean, we could be the spirit found in Princess Quest because, like, come on, would that really be out of the question? At this point, I'm pretty sure Princess Quest is destroyed, so maybe it released something. It's not out of the question. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. Okay, there's a difference there. It would explain why she's in black and white unless there's, like, light on her. So, in at 4, Chica's Revenge. Chica being on the poster though is not necessarily just for a distraction. It could be that it is meant to indicate that Chica is the reason all of this is happening. And honestly, after Niagara Falls Comic Con, I wouldn't put it past Chica. That's right, I'm still mad about it. I mean, after all this, it could be some form of twisted revenge for Gregory dismantling her in an attempt to escape originally. So could this girl be a manifestation of Susie, as an attempt to gain our trust and inevitably kill us? Or at least try to, at the very least, because, like, I mean, to be fair, if we think about it, we aren't going to kill Gregory or get Gregory killed, since after all he does still need to make it up to the hill at the end of the AFTON ending. So unless that happens and then he comes back, which seems unlikely given the help me text on the monitor and the fact that he just swore he would never do that, I feel like this is kind of possible. So could this all just be a manifestation trying to gain our trust? Probably not, but the more Chica, the happier I am. Usually. Getting close to the end of number 3, Client 46. Could this new blonde girl actually be Client 46? The mysterious therapy client who never speaks, but we all thought was Gregory, or at least some of us, most of us thought was Gregory. I mean, honestly, it could make a lot of sense. It would explain why 46 would be talking to Vanny despite Gregory being afraid of Vanessa. It would explain how they could hack the animatronics but not be able to stop them by hacking them again like Gregory could have. It would explain how their home life was great despite their accounts of the past, since after all, Gregory does end up sleeping in a cardboard box. And it makes a lot more sense than he's a time traveler and the tragedy just hasn't happened yet. It would also explain why we never hear 46 talk, because it's a girl, and it would just make us think that it's Vanny or Vanessa instead of it being someone we hadn't seen before. Client 46 was a kid, as evidenced by multiple recordings, and they would be immune to the deaths of her therapist if she was talking to Vanny, but who could this mysterious girl be? But ultimately, in at number 2, Ghost. While yes, this girl could be 46, it's also possible that she is Elizabeth Afton, either as a ghost, which if she is 46 wouldn't really make sense, or she could be possessed by Elizabeth Afton's spirit. If we take a look at the blob, which does include Circus Baby, her eyes aren't lit anymore, meaning that the spirit is no longer in there. And considering how AFTON's body still somehow survived, and we think that Michael Mann should make his way into Glamrock Freddy, it would make sense that Elizabeth's spirit would survive as well, especially if she wanted to stick around to keep trying to impress dear old dad. Since in a previous video we came to the conclusion that Remnant can only be burned away if the spirit wants to be set free, or rather the burning doesn't really do anything and they're only released if they get their unfinished business completed, like the original Missing Children and the Happiest Day minigame getting that party. Elizabeth could be sent to gain Gregory's trust and then defeat him like she did in Sister Location, or maybe she's there to find her brother. And finally, in at number 1, Great Escape. The final potential plot would be a great escape story, where this blonde girl has come to the rescue of Gregory or has been released because she was trapped, and now she has to make a break for it while the building collapses around her. Will she save Gregory or will she only save herself? Multiple endings are not out of the question and kind of expected at this point, with one of them, the most difficult, seemingly being the true ending. But who knows? Maybe none of these are right and we're all reading into this idea way too much, and our expectations are just going to ruin this DLC for us. That's right, I made the joke. You thought I was done making cringy jokes and puns. Hell to the no. I will always try and make terrible messages and jokes because that's just what I do. No matter where I am, terrible, unrelated, possibly offensive jokes are always being made. Now first, your instinct may be that this is impossible, okay? And honestly, that was my first instinct too. I mean, Susie's been dead since like 1985 with the Missing Children's incident, and she ends up possessing Chica, who is then set free and Happiest Day. So like, how is it even remotely possible? Well, some say that the Happiest Day minigame that sets Susie free really takes place at the very end of the timeline, no matter when that ends up being, meaning that at the time of security breach, none of the original 5 animatronics have actually been released, which means that if we go off the fact that this girl is possessed, this is entirely possible. I mean, Susie is the first of the Missing Children and definitely seemingly the most important one, given the fact that we see her as a kid in the Fruity Maze minigame's reflection, and I mean, even if the one you should not have killed is Cassidy, it's just a blown out version of her face. But the puppet is present for the Happiest Day minigame, and they get released in Fnaf 6, right? There's one key detail, however, that really makes me unsure. Something that's been in the back of my brain for a while, but it may make a few people mad because it involves using the novels. In the original novel trilogy, starting with the Silver Eyes, the Funtime animatronics are injected with Remnant made from the original 5 possessed animatronics, meaning that if Remnant does indeed contain part of the soul instead of just being metal that once had a soul, the original 5, despite being set free in Happiest Day, no matter when it takes place, could still have the slightest bit of spirit form in the main world, I guess. Which could also explain why Molten Freddy had to show up along with Scrap Baby, also known as Elizabeth, in Fnaf 6, unless we just assume that there was a slight bit of Elizabeth remaining in Ennard after she left, or if we assume that Henry wanted to get rid of all traces of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, or all things that AFTON created, which at that point also included his son. That's a lot of assumptions. So without assuming anything, but also while using the books to get some further context, which some people don't like, it is possible that after they burned in Fnaf 6, much like AFTON, Susie's spirit was set loose. Not free, like it didn't move on, but it was just loose in the atmosphere, willing to grab onto whatever it could. Or that it merged into the blob, and then the fire that Gregory causes that caused the cave-in ended up setting her soul loose again, and then she possessed a person. I don't think that there is really any explanation that could mean that this is Susie's original body. That seems fundamentally impossible. So whoever this is, if she is a character we've already met prior to this game, she would have to be possessed. Unless this is an entirely new character, which is absolutely possible. I mean, it doesn't have to be someone that's already established, obviously, but I mean, it's fun to speculate and theorize nonetheless. Another indication that I've seen a few people point out is that Chica does actually also appear on this poster, which is certainly an interesting choice. I mean, she was certainly the most popular enemy animatronic in this game, and the other animatronics are very out of commission even before the collapse. I mean, Roxy couldn't see and Monty was split in two. But since we can't really take anything in Fnaf at first glance, is this actually meant to indicate the identity of our mystery girl? it's certainly a possibility. I mean, the only ones who really know are Steelwool, Scott, and whoever made the poster. But given Chica's state, I'm guessing that this is just meant to indicate a timeline, that this occurs after the collapse rather than at some other time prior to the game starting, and then maybe they rebuild the Pizzaplex, or maybe even long after it ends. Because I mean, like, look at her, okay? Chica has got to be probably one of the most resilient animatronics in the group, because she's still kicking despite being crushed by a trash compactor and then having a building land on top of her, and she still has most of her smoking hot bod. Some of it was removed, some of it was cracked, but her face also has seemingly melted, possibly due to the fire we were using to kill Burn Trap, or maybe it's just because like a fire started in the kitchen when the building collapsed, and then she thought that it was just really hot pizza. I don't know. She's also lost the lower half of her left arm, her left, not your left. Remember that, I've made that mistake. And she's also lost her right leg warmer. The casing on her midriff and right arm is gone, but other than that, she is still fairly intact. Her endoskeleton is, at the very least, especially compared to Monty. Also, interestingly enough, only Chica's white face melted, meaning that it looks like someone spilt frosting all over her face. Yeah, I guess that takes the term busted to a whole new level. But other than that, there aren't really any connections between her and Susie. Probably the most resilient animatronic in the group because, again, she's still kicking. Susie was possessing the yellow Chica, so I feel like this Chica being white is meant to show us that this is not going to be like the same sort of situation. So I don't think that relating this Chica to that Chica or this Chica to Susie is really logical in this case. I think it's a bad idea, okay? No, I guarantee you that this is not going to be Susie, and if it is, I'm going to quit FNAF. Look, yes, she's blonde, and yes, Susie was blonde, but she was also blonde in 1985, okay? It's been like 50 years since the missing children's incident in the games, and the original Chica animatronic was destroyed, and Susie's spirit was released, okay? Happiest Day does not take place at the end of the timeline. The pigtails on this girl are very reminiscent of Baby, but this girl has blonde hair, and while we may not be able to see her face, I feel like it is possible that she does have green eyes, okay? Because anyone with blonde hair instantly makes me think of Elizabeth Afton, not Susie. Since Elizabeth has more impact to the story than Susie, and even in the books, Baby ends up having more of an impact thanks to the Afton amalgam. And considering the blob that got introduced in this game is very much similar to that amalgam, this still makes the most sense to me, okay? But I figured that I'd go through the possibilities in separate videos just for good measure, okay? I'm not sure. Who do you think this little girl is, alright? Do you think it's Elizabeth's spirit? Do you think it's Vanessa's spirit? Do you think it's Susie's spirit? Or just some random stupid kid who wandered into a house of horror? Be sure you let me know down below. I'm still adamant on Elizabeth, but I don't know, maybe it's just a stupid kid. Last time I came to the conclusion that this mysterious girl is one of this round's missing children that got possessed by Elizabeth. And while I do still firmly believe that, this got me thinking, who else could it possibly be? We asked you loyal subscribers on a community post, and the overwhelming conclusion was that the majority of you are wrong. Okay, just kidding. A lot of you though seem to think that this could be Vanessa as a ghost. And despite the fact that Vanny's eyes are on the poster, I think that you might actually be onto something. So let's talk about it. Although I just need to put this out there, the identity of this little girl is 100% not Susie, the girl who possesses Chica, okay? Susie has been dead for a very long time when this game takes place, being dead over 50 years or so, and while that doesn't really matter in the context of FNAF, there's still no way it could be. You may be thinking that she could be possessed by Susie, but we release Susie's spirit in the Happiest Day minigame. Some assume that this takes place at the end of the timeline, however I don't think that's true, considering how FNAF 3 was supposed to be the end, and that's when FNAF 3 is over and we get the good ending. So to me, that indicates that the Happiest Day minigame takes place around the time of FNAF 3, especially considering how the simulated pizzeria from FNAF 6 didn't have to lure the original animatronics back to the pizzeria, meaning that they did not need to be released, because they had already been dealt with. So in regards to this theory, the first thing I need to disprove is that it's impossible, since Vanny's eyes are in the corner. But just because we see some faded eyes, it doesn't mean that a spirit cannot be separate from a body. I mean, look at AFTON, for example. This man was code that possessed a human while his body was stuck in an underground pizzeria. So there is a precedent for their body being around without their soul. The issue in my mind comes around when we see that since Vanny's eyes are glowing, her body is operational, which kinda shoots this theory between the eyes until you remember that there are multiple things possessing Vanny's body. One version of Glitchtrap's code and then Vanessa herself. So we can go one of two ways with this now. The fact that Vanny's body may solely be Glitchtrap now, or the fact that Glitchtrap is still operating in Vanessa, but Burntrap is also AFTON. He's back as AFTON, okay? Either way, there are two versions of AFTON in operation right now. One of them is coded and the other is possibly not, but we can't really be sure. And William isn't the only person to have a coded version. I mean, remember Princess Quest? The game designed to keep Vanessa at bay while William wreaks havoc as Vanny? I mean, the Princess Quest ending, otherwise known as the best ending, is the only ending to have 3 stars. It had some significance, but what? It's a question we've been asking ever since Security Breach ended. Another one is what happened to the Princess Quest game machines located around the Pizzaplex. It seems reasonable that at the very least the one in Roxy's salon was destroyed, and if the Pizzaplex is in ruins, then the others must have been destroyed too, right? Well, if that is the case, what happens to Vanessa's spirit? Like, is it released, or does it fade away into nothing? It's not fading away, not with unfinished business still afoot. The spirit of Vanessa had to go somewhere, but where could it go? Well, this could be some random girl that Vanessa just grabbed off the street or that was walking by, or it could still be one of the missing children that was trapped in the building. Either way, whoever they are, it's really of little consequence if this is really Vanessa possessing them. Okay, the only thing that matters in this context is that Vanessa's possessing them, not who the kid is, I'm guessing. The precedent is set in this universe where one person can possess multiple things if one version that is possessing something is coded and the other is a spirit. So this is definitely possible. The character on the poster is also actually completely grayscale, aside from the rim lighting thanks to her flashlight and the color of her lights on the shoes that she's wearing. These are also colored purple and red, colors that in this game specifically are linked to William because it's purple. I mean, I can't even wear a shirt on this channel now without being called the purple guy. So yeah, purple equals AFTON, Burntrap, William, whatever. And then Vanny with her giant glowing red eyes are also on this poster, okay? It's like they wanted us to make this connection. But if they wanted us to make the connection, does that mean that this is all intentional, or is it mostly just a red herring or MacGuffin to keep us away from the real story? That's for you to debate in the comments. Either way, I think that the possibility of this girl being possessed by Vanessa is absolutely possible, especially since she could be just a manifestation of the player character from Princess Quest, just kind of modernized because, you know, it's Fnaf, we can't really argue with that kind of thing. Which I'm sure would make a lot of people mad if that is the case, because everyone thinks that the girl from Princess Quest is Cassidy or Golden Freddy, but that's not canon because that name was scrapped from the files, okay? Someone at Steelwell may just have not known the significance of that name and like named the character after their daughter or something, or after a sister or whatever, okay? So no way to be sure, but that name has been confirmed as not canon, so what do you think, okay? I mean, the majority of you did think that it was Vanessa in the community post, but what do you think after watching both of these videos? Okay, be sure you let me know down below, and if you haven't seen the other one, okay, the link will be at the end of this video for you, because that's just the kind of generous, beautiful, exotic, absolutely befuddling human being that I am. I'm also very humble. I'm still banking on the Elizabeth train, but it really depends for where they want to go with the series next. Like, they could go Invasion of the Body Snatchers and get Vanessa to claim her body back, or they could go with a family reunited.